In my audience sat a man who, by his confession, was broke. He had read the same book, but he suddenly realized he had done nothing with the use of his imagination to solve his financial problem. He decided he would try to imagine himself as the as the winner of the 510 pool at Caliente racetrack. In his words, in this pool, one attempts to pick winners in the 5th through the 10th races. So this is what I did. In my imagination, I stood, sorting my tickets and feeling as I did so that I had each of the 6 winners. I enacted this scene over and over in my imagination until I usually felt goose pimples. Then I saw the cashier give me a large sum of money which I placed beneath my imaginary shirt. This was my entire imaginal drama. And for 3 weeks, night after night, I enacted this scene and fell asleep in the action. 3 weeks again. Is anybody here willing to do 3 days? 3 weeks. You're seeing and hearing testimonials that happen of a magnitude that's barely imaginable. 3 weeks. What would you do for 3 weeks that could get you anything you desired? Anything you desired. This was my entire imaginal drama, and for 3 weeks, night after night, I enacted this scene and fell asleep in the action. After 3 weeks, I traveled physically to the Caliente racetrack, and on that day, every detail of my imaginative play was actually realized. The only change in the scene was that the cashier gave me a check for a total of $84,000 instead of currency. TK. After my lecture the night this story was told, a man in the audience asked me if I thought it possible for him to duplicate TK's experience. I told him he must decide the circumstances of his imaginal scene himself, but that whatever scene he chose, he must create a drama he could make natural to himself and imagine the end intently with all the feeling he could muster. He must not labor for the means to the end, but live imaginatively in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. 1 month later, he showed me a check for $16,000, which he had won in another 510 pool at the same Caliente racetrack the previous day. This man had a sequel to his most interesting duplication of TK's good fortune. His first win took care of his immediate financial difficulties, although he wanted more money for future family security. Also, and more important to him, he wanted to prove that this had not been an accident. He reasoned that if his good luck could happen a second time in succession, the so-called law of percentages would give way to proof for him that his imaginal structures were actually producing this miraculous reality. And so he dared to put his imagination to a second test. He continues, I wanted a sizable bank account, and this to me meant seeing a large balance on my bank statements. Who doesn't want that? Are you willing to give 3 weeks of tiny bit of effort as you fall asleep? A tiny bit of feeling it real as you fall asleep? I wanted a sizable bank account, and this to me meant seeing a large balance on my bank statements. Therefore, in my imagination, I enacted a scene which took me into 2 banks. In each bank, I would see an appreciative smile meant for me from the bank manager as I walked into his establishment, and I would hear the teller's cordial greeting. I would ask to see my statement. In one bank, I saw a balance of $10,000. In the other bank, I saw a balance of $15,000. My imaginal scene did not end there. Immediately after seeing my bank balances, I would turn my attention to my horse racing system, which through a progression of 10 steps would bring my winnings to $11,533 with a starting capital of $200. That's the imagination. I would divide the winnings into 12 piles on my desk, counting the money in my imaginary hands. I would put $1,000 in each of 11 piles and the remaining $523 in the last pile. My imaginative accounting would amount to $36,533, including my bank balances. I enacted this entire imaginative scene each morning, afternoon, and night for less than 1 month, and on March 2nd, I went to Caliente Track again. I made out my tickets, but strangely enough, and not knowing why I did so, I duplicated 6 more tickets exactly like the 6 already made out, but in the 10th selection, I made a mistake and copied 2 tickets twice. As the winners came in, I held 2 of them, each paying $16,423.50. I also had 6 consolation tickets, each paying $656.80. The combined total amounted to $36,788. My imaginary accounting 1 month before had totaled $36,533. He was over by what, $255 or something like this? 2 points of interest, most profound to me, were that by seeming accident, I had marked 2 winning tickets identically, and also that at the end of the 9th race, which was one of the major winners, the trainer attempted to scratch the horse, but the stewards denied the trainer's request. Remember, I enacted this entire imaginative scene each morning, afternoon, and night for less than 1 month. That's another 3 weeks plus. So we're talking, in each of these things we're talking about, as you can tell, and we're not even through the book yet, the most potent things we've heard so far, each have been 3 weeks. Are you willing to give 3 weeks of that little slice of time as you're falling asleep to your imagined desire feeling real to you? It doesn't matter what it is. Are you willing to do it? 3 weeks in a row. Prove it doesn't work. How about that? Prove it doesn't work. AJF was his initials. Back to Neville. How subtle were the threads that led to his goal? Results may testify to our imagining. Results must testify to our imagining, or we really are not imagining the end at all. A.J.F. faithfully imagined the end, and all things conspired to aid his harvesting. His mistake in copying a winning ticket twice and the steward's refusal to allow the trainer's request were events created by the imaginal drama to move the plan of things forward to its goal, a creative march. When this happens when this happens for you, the first time you're going to be like, how is everything moving towards that goal? You see it happen in front of you, whatever it is. Again, choose the small, seemingly attainable. The parking space, the coffee, the free dinner, the kiss on your cheek, the rose, the flower, the butterfly, whatever. Choose the small one, but watch. Watch what takes place to bring these things into place. You're going to be like, that's strange at first. Then you're going to be like, for the big ones, I told you about my wife leaving to work and having deadlines, and they were impossible deadlines, and all I did was I sat back and I imagined her walking in the door on the same day and telling me how these people were committing to overtime, and all these goals were going to be met. Where in the morning when she left, they were impossible deadlines. And when she walked out, all I did was imagine that when she walked back in, I'd be high-fiving her and hugging her, sharing the news. She would tell me that the deadlines were met. And verbatim, these events would happen. At least a handful of times. At least, if not 6 times, over the course of several weeks. Many hours of overtime. 12 days a week, 7 days a week. The workers, they didn't care. They were happy to do it. Everything conspires to bring your harvest. Everything conspires. When you see it happen, it's going to be a mind-blowing experience, because it all literally marches towards your imagined event. It all marches for you like automatons.